I love to learn new stuff like all the time. And so for me, it was like really exciting to learn from your class because we were talking about partnering up and they mentioned you and I was like, oh dude, that would be dope. And so then they were like, well, what should we have him do? And I was like, I want to learn the stuff he's been doing, the 3D stuff. Right, because you did like a lot of these amazing photography looking things that are all based in 3D coat and is using like the voxel sculpting stuff that they got in there. And I heard about it like from a one of our mutual friends, and he
Mhm.
was demonstrating. He's like, yeah, he's really into this like voxel stuff. He makes these things like really quick, and I'm also about efficiency and speed, right? And so hearing kind of like you're very similar,
Yep.
I was really excited. And so when I was watching your video, that was like literally the number one impression that I got from it, right? The impression was immediately a sense of like efficiency. Like you were really clever, and I was like, oh, of course, And I was like for instance, the when you started talking about using stencils, like you were designing the shapes first in Photoshop because that's where you feel comfortable. You feel like a lot of power and control there to focus on design and iconic imagery. And I was like, awesome, right? I was like, I get that. So far, so good.
Yep.
But then taking that and throwing it into a 3D package and then using the 3D package to stencil it out, to sculpt it out, to basically cut it out like cookie cutter it out. I was like, of course, and I was like, that's so brilliant, you know. I was like, of course, why haven't I even thought about this? And then so from there, I just kind of like spent. I remember though, like I spent like 3 hours just like R&D, like 3D code and like learning how to navigate. That's like the first thing I always do when jumping into a software I've never touched before is like, can I like just
Yep.
like make a box? I think a lot of times people jump in and they say, well, I can't build a cityscape, so like I can't. Where's the cityscape button? And they don't find it, and so then they just assume the software sucks. And it's like no, give it a chance and give it a really fair shake before you consider maybe it's a software problem, right? Because there are sometimes some softwares are lacking in certain things, and so what you end up finding is you work around it. There's a common thing said amongst other 3D modelers, which is choose your poison, because none of them are really perfect. Everything has their flaws and also
Yep.
their pros and cons. So for me, I was like trying to find it. I really can't find too many yet. That I was like, because I keep messing with it. I'm like, what the? There's like nothing wrong with this tool. And so I was really excited about your lesson because you just demonstrated to me like, because you even told me before I was take the lesson is like, you were probably gonna really like this software because it really kind of fits in the hands of artists, like, or not like artists, but like painters, or like drawers, people like us who draw, right? And I was like, it does.
Yes,
It feels
exactly.
real good. It feels real good. Even better
Yeah,
than
no,
other
yeah.
softwares, even better than some of the more popular softwares that a lot of people use. And I was actually kind of shocked. And but because of that, I wanted to try to push myself. So this is actually like the third. This image we're looking at is the third incarnation, right? Of me trying to
Yep.
practice and use the tools as you were demonstrating. And I still think I could obviously push it and be much better. But from your video
Mhm.
and from like kind of my instincts of what I think I was able to pull off. This is pretty much as far as I went. I went for kind of this. Originally, was trying to just draw like I had no ambitions of anything. I was just trying to make the tool work, and then I was like, okay, this kind of looks like some sort of like a Judge Dredd type of dystopian world where like you have like the business
Yep.
corporations living around like the slums. So I was like, I'll just kind of go for that look, and make the industrial buildings have like no personality and have the buildings on the ground have the most personality. Like they have a lot more, like even like glitter of light flickering from the sun, and then the industrial buildings are just
Yep.
pretty much just cookie cutter like boxes, right? And then just put a little
Yep.
spaceship in there because maybe there's like a story of some sort, some guy just flying over. So there is like it's the future because there's a spaceship flying around, but only one. Like they don't like everyone else
Yeah,
just like
that's fine.
lives and breathes their work or lives and breathes their slums, right?
Yep.
This one person for whatever reason is flying around, and I thought it was a lot of fun, man. I was like blown away, and this like aside from the 3 hours of like study and R&D, this like took about 2 hours of actual time. And I think most of the time was technical difficulties. I think a lot of the problems I was running into was Keyshot kept crashing because it couldn't handle what else, like my ambitions. I was like, oh, I'm gonna make this city 17,000 miles long, and then it crashed. And if you guys watch the raw footage of me doing, you'll see like yeah, it crashed a lot. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was fun. It was great. Yeah, and so uh,
Cool. No, it's like you're saying, like 3D code is like I found it's a kind of hybrid between like low poly modeling, which is my Modo and 3ds Max and all other softwares, and mixed between ZBrush and those low poly modeling kind of programs,
yeah,
because you can still paint and you can create geometry by without bringing actual geometry. Like in like a normal 3D package, you would bring primitive and then stretch it out and do something with that. But in 3D code, you just draw a rectangle and creates the object for you, which is great, or you pick a sphere and you just draw. And what I also the second thing I like about 3D code, it's not perfect, it's kind of suggestive. When you paint, you also suggest a lot of details by just putting brush strokes. And the same thing with 3D code. You don't need to create perfect geometry. And I think will be the kind of biggest struggle for many people. They're trying to create a perfect geometry, like perfect rectangle and just extrude faces. This is not how 3D code works. You need to paint, you need to draw with the geometry, because whenever you take those into Keyshot and apply your lighting, you lose a lot of details and you just get the overall sense of details, which you got really nice. And I really liked how you found like a London picture, just the aerial shot, and just applied that texture as a procedural one on top of your geometry, and it gave you a lot of like highlights and really cool things that to kind of sell the scale of this thing, which is great.
yeah, dude. Thanks. It was hard, man. I was like, I was really struggling with the photo stuff, and it's funny because it's like, as soon as I did that, I realized all the things I could have done better. Like I was like, oh my gosh! Like one of the first things I was like, what I could have done, which would have been much better, was because I made a lot of this. The geometry is actually the same.
Yeah,
It's actually like it's just one big geometry, right? It's just one big thing. Like the small buildings are part of the big buildings, and I was like, I should have separated. I shouldn't have been so lazy, because if I would have done that, I could have applied the textures a
yeah,
little bit more effectively. And because I didn't do that. And another thing that I
yeah,
realized is like it could be a smart strategy to actually go and find a lot of photos and photography and actually edit them so that there is no sky or there's no like there's like actually just city texture. Like it's like literally that's all it would be.
yeah,
So when I project it, I don't have to worry about like now how do I hide that sky, So I like when I did that, it was
yeah,
significantly more like powering. And so one of the things that I wanted to ask though, like one of the and this is more of like a this to me is more of like your thoughts about like when you first started jumping into 3D code, because for me, like
hmm
whenever I jump into a software, there's a few things that I need to have the software do for me, right? One, it's got to be
hmm
it's got to have um, it has to have a clear sense of intuitiveness, right? And I don't mean like it has to be like
yep,
like a iPhone where like I press one button does all this stuff. Like I mean
yep,
like I have to understand
yep,
like I have to be able to understand the creator's intent with the software like sooner than later,
yep,
right? And I think I discovered that right
yep,
away with 3D Code. I was like, I get you guys. I see what you guys are doing, right?
yep,
That's one thing. It's just like the natural intuitiveness because some people think differently and they have different aspects of what they think is more efficient. And then
yep,
the second thing is the 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 most biggest question for me, which is, will this be competitive to my speed in terms of painting, right? Because that's the only reason why I use 3D is because of like there's a very valuable reason that it pushes me beyond what I can do in a 2D sense because I can paint really fast, right? And a
yep,
lot of times I don't need to do 3D. Encourage my students. My students always say, "Oh, well, should I learn 3D?" I say, "Yes, of course." You know, um,
yep,
but you don't have to only do 3D because the only reason why people do 3D is because it's fast. It just really is. But if you can paint faster,
yep,
then you don't have to use 3D, right?
Yep.
for me, like one of the question really leads to is like, did you feel the same? Did you feel that 3D Coat was one of those things where this is it? This is a super efficient and effective tool, right? Like
Yep.
it's like you found your instead of screwing everything in with like a screwdriver, you found your power drill, right? Like this is it. Because for
Yep.
me, like ZBrush was that way, but now I'm like, and I use
Yep.
Silo to model, like do box modeling. But I was telling like
Yep.
producers, I was like, this might be it. This might be the software that actually trumps all those other ones. Like seriously, I felt that way. I was like, this
Yeah.
might be the tool because
Yeah.
it really it has a lot of
Yeah.
intuitiveness to it. Once you start to like the interface right out of the gate, like almost always all softwares will be intimidating. I won't switch to a software. I won't embrace a software
Yeah.
unless I see the purpose of it, right? And for me, like I think software is very, very valuable and very important, and it's really important to embrace it. But we were talking about in my class, which is but you also have to know how to like design and understand the fundamentals and stuff like that. And so for me,
Yeah.
like after I like the interface was the hardest part. Right. Once I got past the
Yeah.
interface, I started saying, "Man, look at all the options that I can do." And I'm curious, did you fall into the same realm? Like, did you feel like when you started messing with 3D Coat that you started discovering like this is actually an extremely powerful
Oh
tool and nobody knows it? Like nobody
man.
knows.
Actually, I'm so happy that I'm watching, I'm seeing your screen grabs, and I can see that you kind of felt really good when you discovered those things. Like even the simplest thing, like assigning a shortcut. You
Yeah,
just press end and you
yeah,
just assign whatever you want. You don't need to do like a voodoo magic to assign the shortcuts. This is the way it works, Like, and also I really like the fact that it's very similar to Photoshop in terms how it's built up. Like it's
yes,
got layer system, lasso tools, it's got brushes and all that stuff. They did not rename everything. Like I don't want to curse other programs, but we all know, like for example, in ZBrush
yeah,
they changed everything and they made it really unique. But if you want to learn that software, you need to understand and learn everything from the scratch. And
yeah,
in this one, you don't need to do that. It's very self-explanatory. You just roll over the tool and it tells you what exactly the tool is doing, which is
yeah,
great. And this, like the second thing, when I saw that thing, I told myself, okay, this is the one I'm gonna use for the rest of my life. It's a very simple thing, but for example, to resize your brush, you don't need to type or press any shortcut. You just like hover over the keyboard,
yeah.
over the Wacom tablet, and to the right, to the left, it changed the brush size. And if
Oh,
you
really? You just
move it
hover? You don't have to even click anything?
no, no, no. And
Oh, what the?
if you hover, and I think you need to press like the right click or normal click on your pen, but you don't need to touch the keyboard. And if you scroll to up and down, you change the depth. Like
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
crazy. And like I've been on ZBrush seminars a few times, and I asked when they gonna introduce this feature because I don't want to like interrupting my creative process when I'm doing something.
yeah, absolutely.
And this is the simplest thing that you need to improve to get your like creative process going without being interrupted by pressing the extra keyboard shortcuts. And overall, like I've been using 3D since '99. It was like 3D Max 4 or something. It always felt technical. Like it always felt
Sure.
like I need to think about how to do instead of like I need to do this. I just press this one. And 3D code, it's like working with clay. You want to add a geometry, you just draw the rectangle. It adds the geometry. You want to
Sure.
subtract it, you just hold Control and it just cuts it.
Yeah.
Just working with clay and yeah, and like you're saying, it's very intuitive. Like so far, like I've met so many people who started using this software and they just keep telling me, oh man, like I spent few hours, like the first few hours when you need to get used to it, like you're saying,
Uh-huh.
and then you just start learning it. Like you think about something like I need to do this, that, and this, and then you just click on a
Sure.
few buttons and you find a way how to do it. Which is great.
Yeah. Awesome. Like, so I guess
Really cool.
another question is like, what were some of your strategies for you to become more like efficient? Like, what are the things that you started doing with the software to become more efficient? Because obviously, assigning hotkeys is like the next step that I'm going to be doing probably in the next lesson. Because I haven't, I
Mhm.
usually don't assign hotkeys until I kind of really navigate through the website or sorry,
Mhm.
the software. Because for me, it's important to just kind of like we'll see what the intentions were of the original creators. Like did they want me to know this hotkey, and is there a reason for it? Is it like does it make sense to me? Like if it doesn't, I'll change it, right? But if it does, then I'll just keep it. As much as I can
Yeah.
keep, I'll keep. But one thing that like I really want to hear from you is this like some of the strategies that really helped you really kind of harness this tool? Like, what are some of the major things that translated really well? Like, for instance, a good example with the lecture is how you use their stenciling, which is super intuitive. It's easy. It's like, oh, okay,
Yeah.
just upload something and done. Make an image, jump it in, done deal. Like, there's nothing to it, and so me like that was like a huge win, right? I was like, that's a huge
Yeah.
win. Like, and even like the models, like you have the image right now where it says models, like right here it
Yeah.
says, I don't think I wrote on this one, but I might have wrote on a different one, or I might have forgot to write it. But
No, no, I
models.
can see it.
So
It's
you
like
can
kit
like
bashing thing, isn't it?
yeah, so you can import models, and I thought that was very
Yep.
yeah, there it is. So I was like explore this. This is the kinds of things I do when like I haven't had time to do this yet, but like this is
Yeah.
something I made note for myself, which was when I have time, explore how to add more kit bashing tools because this is really cool,
Yeah.
right? Like
It
that
is
means
cool.
like
Yeah.
that means like if I go to my other softwares that I like ZBrush and Stylix, I do love those two like really well, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I can make like an abstract shape, bring it to 3D Coat, and just allow the voxel sculpting part of it
Yeah.
be really powerful because this is so much more intuitive. Like even the way you add and do the booleans, it's just so intuitive. And I was like,
Yeah.
damn, dude, this is crazy. And so like it felt
Yeah.
like I could build all my Lego pieces in a different software that I feel probably a little more comfortable. Like box modeling is always going to probably be easier in something like
Yeah.
Silo, where it's just like
Yeah.
I recommend using Silo if you ever just want to get just straight up box modeling. Like it's
Yeah.
so easy and it's super fast.
Well, before I answer your question, I will just give you a quick tip on this kit bashing thing because I think our students will find it really valuable. It's really easy to make those in 3D code as well. Like, for example, imagine if you did like something that you liked and you just need to add it to your kit bashing library. You don't need to export that one. You see on every layer there is like the small thing
Oh, the
that you,
plus.
not the plus.
Oh, okay, I was about to
Next
say,
to the
what
plus.
the? It's game
No,
over.
because I'm just viewing the JPEG. I can't see the
Okay, I see.
thing.
So, but if you
Actually,
like
when
right click on it, it'll pop up something.
no, 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 somewhere over here, when you put your mouse over here, you will get like a hand icon,
Uh,
which will mean that you can grab that layer and just drag it over to
oh,
your model library. Then it
yes.
will ask you to decimate things. You just decimate, and then it will be there forever. You will just create your own libraries, and you can also create your own folders and
And I'm
stuff like
assuming
that.
you can export that too, right? Your library. You can either go to your file hierarchy and
Yeah, yeah,
or you can just export it
absolutely,
there. Yeah, wow,
absolutely.
you're right, dude. Oh my gosh, this is
It's cool,
insane.
isn't
Yeah, see,
it?
like this is like I've always was having these discussions with people. I was like, I feel like there should be a tool already that kind of does like a lot of these things, and if it's funny.
Oh man,
It's been around this whole time, and I just was like too stubborn. That's always what it is, right? It's like people get too stubborn. They're just like they don't want to try anything different because they feel so
yeah,
comfortable. One of my buddies, David Lesperance, he was
yeah,
telling me about 3D Code. He's like, dude, 3D Code's crazy, and I was like, is it? I was like, whatever. But I started trusting that because he is like a really amazing 3D modeler. Like not
yeah.
like
He is.
3D concept art, like 3D modeler. And if someone like
He
him
is. Yeah.
was like talking about it highly, um, then there might be something to it, you know. And so I actually got one of his video tutorials. So I haven't yet to watch it, but I'm
Yeah.
probably gonna start watching it just so I can become really badass in your class, and so I can like really pull some great things. And for me, like I think a lot of times people get caught up with thinking, well, it's not about the tool, it's not about the tool. Like I understand that concept, right? Like because we don't want people to think that the tool will create the epic like designs like that that is going to still rely on you, right? As the person who does the artwork, you have to be the creator, right?
Yeah.
But the tools definitely help. Like if you find a tool that
No,
does
absolutely.
the things that you need it to do, it helps a lot. And that's what I got from your class, man. I was just like, you opened my eyes to a whole new world Like I
Cool,
actually
man.
haven't been able to sleep well because I've been dreaming about 3D
Come
Coat.
on.
Like no, seriously, I woke up like at 3 in the morning and I watched 5 videos on 3D Coat stuff just on random like YouTube channels, and I was just like, I must be powerful. I must have the power.
Well, you will absolutely. I've got some really nice stuff for you in the next lectures as well. Well, coming back to your question, like in order, what can you improve in order to kind of learn
Yes.
it quicker and stuff like that? The first thing and the main thing that I would advise to you and to all other students, because I've seen this struggle before, it's the attitude with which you're gonna use this software. You need to
Okay.
understand this is not like a perfect modeling software. Like I've seen some
Got it.
Maya guys picking it up and like cursing me, man. Oh man, it's so heavy. It's like it's not perfect and stuff like that. And then when they changed the way they model, they actually started enjoying it. Like you don't
Okay.
use like face extrusion. There's no literal like face extrusion here because there are no
Sure.
faces. There are millions of polygons. Which
Yeah.
voxel is? It's just like a bunch of polygons, and you just need to paint in this software. It sounds crazy, but whenever I did my workshops and whenever you will see me doing something, I really paint in 3D code. Like I just need a geometry. I just pick a sphere or pick a lasso tool and just draw it rectangle, and it creates that geometry, you know. And this is the way you should kind of force yourself to use it, rather than getting primitives and trying to build something out of them, you know. And it's very good for concepting, you know, for making those initial 3D ideas, you know, and and then you can take that one and take it further in ZBrush or in Maya, in whatever software you prefer to use. That's why, like, even that city that I created, when you zoom in, it actually looks very sloppy and all the edges are not perfect. But that's the
Sure.
purpose of doing it in 3D and sketching in 3D. When you zoom out, you actually see that it all makes sense. And also, you asked about the speed, like using this software, can you be really quick? I think you can be really quick, but you need to understand that you're using this software to have this 3D base for yourself, you know?
Sure.
And that's the beauty of 3D. Like many people, they just think like they use 3D as a rendering engine, but as me and you know, like for example, you are really good at rendering. You don't need that lighting to 3D. What 3D will give to you is freedom in terms of angles. Like you can sketch one angle really quickly, but if you want to do another angle, you need to redo everything, you know?
Yeah.
But when you have this kind of 3D base, you can start as many angles as you want and explore like a little bit more, you know? It's not the tool that will replace everything you do in 2D. It will just be a complementary tool that will improve your design and speed overall, you know? And plus, like you remember, we talked with you like when we first met. We were talking about VR and all that stuff. You know,
Yeah.
I truly believe like that in 2 or 3 years, you will be able to do a design, texture it, and visualize it all in 3D just in one day. I already been doing like experiments at work, and it's crazy when you show people instead of showing a simple picture that they're looking at, you're actually showing them a 3D. They can look around, even walk, you know, through, like if it's an environment or if it's a gun or something like that, you can put it on and actually see the
Yeah.
model. That's crazy. It's
Yeah, dude.
actually
I'm
really
excited.
exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited about all that stuff. That's gonna probably be my next few tests, like after like maybe like towards week 4 or something. I'm gonna start
Absolutely,
try to like
absolutely. I will
actually
be showing
see
you.
if I can take stuff from 3D Coat and put it into Unreal and stuff, and like make like interactive
Man,
concepts. That'd be great.
like, I don't know if you ever use Marmoset, but actually in my second lecture, instead of using Keyshot, I will be using Marmoset, which is basically
Ooh.
like, have you ever used Marmoset?
No, I haven't. So this will be another world that I'm going to
Well,
explore.
basically, you know, Marmoset is like a preview thing of Unreal. You can't animate anything, but man, there is a really nice fog system out there. So basically, when you put your model in, you got your fog, your lighting, everything in, and it looks really, really cool. And it's all real time, so you can even animate it just by using simple camera turns. You can do some
Yeah,
really basic stuff,
I
but it's
guess.
very, very, very cool in terms of how quick and simple it is. You just put your model in,
Okay, cool.
activate fog and light, and it's all looking good.
So I guess like that leads
Cool.
us to like the final part, which is like what then what should I be prepared for lesson two? Like, what advice do you have for me if I'm like looking at what I've done, like the kinds of things like from
Hmm.
the city state? Like, what do you think I should focus on to improve to make them better? Because right now, like obviously, I think it's like I'm just really kind of getting in there, learning the tool, and but
Hmm.
like with that restraint, like it's holding me back, but at the same time, I'm not letting it. I'm going to try to learn the tool, and
Hmm.
but like what kind of advice would help me kind of improve my 3D concepting, so that way when I go into the next lesson, I can start trying to
Hmm.
apply that right away.
Yep. Well, yeah, I gave the answer like when you were saying that you've got one building and you just duplicated it over just to create the same city. Like
Yeah,
approach it as if you were doing in Photoshop. Like as a designer, a 2D designer, you know that you need to bring a variety. Like
yeah,
you
you're
need to
right.
bring like different textures and uh, lighting and everything else is already done by 3D, but you need to do those 9 choices that you would do in 2D. You just will transfer them to 3D world, and because you're in 3D code, you're not in the very complicated 3D program where everything is
Yeah,
so difficult. You change a stencil and then you get another building.
yeah,
It's not like you need to remodel everything.
yeah,
That's
you're
the
right.
beauty of 3D code. You just change your 2D source and like paint a couple of different silhouettes. Like this is the reason why I did like a regular city. I just wanted to show that you actually can make like buildings. Making sci-fi is pretty easy. You put like different crazy shapes and it already looks like a city. But you can definitely make like put a different kind of silhouettes, like spiky buildings, and you will get the build out your city.
Yeah,
So yeah,
you're right.
like
Yeah,
my main advice would be just to bring a little bit of variety. And I understand that it's a little bit different from what I'm doing in your course because I already know the tool. I'm applying your advices and
yeah,
the knowledge that you're trying to transfer to us. But in this course, it's a bit more tricky because you need to learn software.
yeah.
But trust me, 3D code is so intuitive. You will just think in terms of design, or like you will use your
Okay.
design skill and you will find an appropriate tool that will make that happen, which
Yeah,
is
you're right. I
in
think like with this, like I was like pinning myself in the corner by trying to focus on I was like more. It's like I always tell this to my students too. It's like whenever you are learning a new software, you think you're dope when you make something, but it's only really an example of what you've learned in the software rather than demonstrating your design abilities. And I think that's what happened
yeah.
to me. Like I was trying to simulate some design towards the end with that little spaceship. It's probably the only thing that saved it. And it's like none of them that wasn't even built in 3D code. And so, but like in terms of like the actual like tool, like I felt like it was a success in terms of learning the tool, but it was a
Yeah.
disaster in terms of like maybe design. Yeah, I agree. And I think so. I think for next lesson, then I'm gonna try to come back and say, okay, I'm gonna learn the tool still because I think that's still gonna be very difficult. And there's still gonna be things for me to do, but I'm gonna try to
Yeah.
start bringing in the focus onto design. I think you're right. So that way I can
Yeah.
actually start using it as a real application in my everyday
No,
work life.
absolutely, absolutely.
So
And also, like also a side note, it will be more appropriate to our students. Like use the 3D thing and push it to limits. Like because it's a 3D scene, you can get some really crazy angles, like looking up, looking down. Use the
that's
most
true.
out of it.
That's
Like
true.
for example, in second one we will be doing a vehicle or like some kind of sci-fi thing, and I really that's the reason why I'm using 3D, not to get a nice lighting, but to get the angles that I would never get with my 2D skills.
That's
And
true.
because it's all in 3D, you can experiment, you can like do some really, and the way you construct your angles, you can build up the story as well. Like you go for close up to show something different, and you zoom out, you select a different camera lens to show something different. I will be explaining those things in third, I think in
Uh,
fourth and fifth lecture. So,
Okay,
but it's
great.
always good to start thinking about it right now
Okay.
as well.
All right. Well, thanks a lot,
Cool,
man.
man. Thank you very much, and see you next week then.